Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're talking about my Week 11 tight end starter sits for the 2019 fantasy football season. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about only tight ends, going into the matchups at the tight end position as we enter Week 11 of the fantasy football season. Then going over my top 12 tight end rankings, my tight end ones on the week. Before we begin today's video, let me remind all of you, if you haven't yet already, subscribe to the channel. Also, click the bell notification button to stay up to date on my latest content. And if you like today's video, please don't forget to click the like button. Hey everybody, how's it going? All right, so if you're looking for some news in terms of injury, stuff like that, go over to the quarterback video, check that out. I talked about some news around the National Football League, all that kind of jazz. But for here, this video, we're only talking about the tight end position. We're talking about some matchups. We'll talk about the top 12 rankings that are to the left of me at this moment in time. But let's go straight away. Let's talk about the matchups at the tight end position, because typically this is very valuable. Obviously, a lot of you only have one or two tight ends on roster, and you have one that is clearly the more dominant of the two. But I think because of how some of these matchups are set up, there could be a potential of you even starting two tight ends, maybe one in your flex this week. But let's talk about this. Starting off, the Arizona Cardinals give up the most points to the tight end position. That has been the case all season long and has not changed. And that is going to continue to stay as consistent as possible, because they just really can't cover. The linebackers are not good enough and have not been good enough this season to be able to cover. They play against probably a backup tight end this week, as George Kittle will probably miss this week for the San Francisco 49ers. Ross Dwelley is going to be able to come in and I think still have himself a pretty good producing week. We saw a guy like O.J. Howard last week, who had not produced all season long, dominate this defense at times. So there is going to be a potential that I'm 100% still going to be playing anybody who plays against this defense in terms of the tight end position. So I'm confident with it, and I like that. Also, Tampa Bay Buccaneers giving up almost just as many points to opposing tight ends. They get to play against Jared Cook Jr. Of the New Orleans Saints. Jared Cook's very good matchup. Besides that, last time he played against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 10 plus points. Last week, having himself 10 targets in the matchup against Atlanta should be a good play for this week, considering Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they give up a lot of points, the second most points to quarterbacks, the first most points to opposing wide receivers, and the second most points to opposing tight ends. This is a defense that really cannot stop the passing game and has been dominated all year long. I think Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, Jared Cook are going to be able to take advantage of that this week. Moving on, the Oakland Raiders, they will be taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. Is Tyler Eifert a good enough play? I don't think so. I don't think with the rookie quarterback conditions, with the fact, sure, Tyler Eifert scored a touchdown last week, but he only had like 4 targets, 2 receptions. That's not a consistent enough streamlined target percentage to make me convinced enough to where I want, or confident enough to where I want to play a guy like that into this said matchup. Moving on to Detroit Lions, this is another issue. Now that you have a guy like Jeff Driscoll at quarterback, is a guy like TJ Hawkinson reliable enough? Even though Dallas Cowboys, they have not been good against linebackers all season long, is it a reliable enough play to put in a guy like TJ Hawkinson with a backup quarterback that really is not going to play well, in my opinion, or not play up to par as many other people think? So that's also another sketchy play. Other than that, the Chicago Bears giving up a lot of points. Gerald Everett should be good this week. The Green Bay Packers are on a bye week. The Pittsburgh Steelers play against the Cleveland Browns. Unless Ricky Seals-Jones is making a huge play, there's really nothing else to take advantage of that. Seattle Seahawks are on a bye week. Kansas City Chiefs will be taking on Hunter Henry. Should have himself a very good game there. The Detroit Lions, maybe Jason Witten, Blake Jarwin, the combination of those two. Outside of that, I don't really want to, you get a pretty good idea. A lot of these teams give up a lot of points to tight end position, and then some of them just completely disappear. The Titans are on a bye week. The Indianapolis Colts. Who's the Jaguars tight end? Nobody knows. What is it? I think it's Jeff Swaim at the moment, unless he's injured. I don't know. Because to be honest, every single one of those tight ends have gotten injured this year. But regardless, we get the matchups. We understand it. And let's just talk about my top 12 of the week as it currently stands. All right, so again, rankings are subject to change, but as of right now, in terms of taking account into injuries, quarterback situations, and matchups, this is what I have as my top 12 rankings, my tight end ones on the week. Starting off with number 1, Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce should have had 2 touchdowns last week. Fortunately, his second one was called back, but again, we are going to see more and more Travis Kelce at the number 1 spot now that Austin Hooper will be missing the next month with that MCL sprain. Unfortunately, that is going to be the case, and that is going to hurt him. So going forward, it is going to be Travis Kelce that is dominating the tight end position, and I think at the number 1 spot this week. The issue that I find is that Travis Kelce in his career, especially last year, has not produced well against this defense. The Chargers defense is always given Travis Kelce struggles. Hopefully that is not going to be the case this week. In terms of what he let's just go back and let's look at this, shall we? Because it's something that I've seen in the past, and it's something that when I was doing like off-season statistical breakdown, I kept continuously seeing that he was not able to produce against the Los Angeles Chargers. In week 1 of last season, 6 targets, 1 reception for 6 yards. Not great. Then in week 15, he had himself, that's a pretty decent game. 7 receptions, 61 yards, but nothing major. Hopefully, we see a major performance because that's what we want from Travis Kelce. That's why we drafted him. So, 7 targets, 61 yards. In a full PPR, sure, not bad. Half PPR, you barely broke 10 points. Regardless, pretty good, pretty good player, pretty good quarterback. Should be good on the week. He's my number 1. Moving on to Mark Andrews, my number 2. Mark Andrews coming off a 2-touchdown week. This is a guy that is continuously seeing a hefty amount of targets going in his direction. And playing against the Houston Texans defense should be a very easy slate for him. Here's my thought process. Outside of Mark Andrews, Hollywood Brown, nobody else is catching the ball for this team, and they're going to have to throw the ball, and they're going to succeed in throwing the ball. Mark Andrews is going to have himself a very good week here for the Baltimore Ravens. He's pretty much their number 1 receiving option, and that is not by accident. That is by design. They use the tight end position a lot, whether it's him, Nick Boyle, and or Hayden Hurst. They're all producing, but Mark Andrews is the best of the 3 and has been great all season long. He's my number 2 on the week. Moving into number 3, Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry gets played against the Kansas City Chiefs. Should be a back-and-forth shootout between 2 teams. And Hunter Henry continuing to see work in the red zone, continuing to see a hefty amount of targets, even more targets than a guy like Mark Andrews this season. Both of them should be great. I expect them both to be good. I think Mark Andrews probably has a better opportunity because there are less threats in terms of vulturing his value in fantasy for that team. There are less targets to focus on in comparison to the Chargers offense when you have a guy like Eckler and Gordon out of the backfield consistently catching passes, unlike the Ravens team. When you have Keenan Allen, when you have Mike Williams, all of them are going to take opportunities away from a guy like Hunter Henry, but I still think that he's going to have himself a very good week. He's my number 3 tight end on the week. These are 3 guys that are probably going to be in the top 5 for the rest of the season. Moving on to number 4, Jared Cook playing against Tampa Bay. This is a guy that when he has been healthy this season, I think, let me if I'm not mistaken, in the last couple of weeks, 10 points has been Jared Cook's number. Yeah, so since week 5, 12 points, week 6, 11 points. Had 2 weeks of injury, has had a bye week, came back, another 10-point performance. I expect 10-plus points this week against the Tampa Bay defense. Should be a very easy matchup. And like I talked about earlier in the quarterback video, also in the rankings and matchups, this is a defense that's given up a lot of points to the passing game, and they are not slowing down. They just cut the first-round cornerback that they drafted a couple years back. So I think it's not trending in the right direction for this secondary. I think Jared Cook will be able to take advantage of that. He should be good. He's my number 4. Moving on to Darren Waller playing against Cincinnati. Another fantastic matchup. We just saw what Mark Andrews was capable of doing against Cincinnati. I'm sure Darren Waller can take advantage of it. Obviously, there's a lot of other tight ends in that offense, fullbacks catching touchdowns. Hopefully, we get a good amount of targets. We haven't seen Darren Waller see a significant amount of targets similar to what he did earlier in the season, but if we get him more and more involved, hopefully that's going in the right direction, and he should be a very good start this week as my number 5 tight end. Moving on, we have Greg Olsen. Had himself a huge week last week against the Green Bay Packers. Perfectly fine. Now we go against Atlanta. Another very good matchup. Should be a back-and-forth passing event. And I think Greg Olsen, as he is gaining more and more favor from a guy like Kyle Allen, is going to see more and more targets. Hopefully that is the case. I think Greg Olsen's week last week wasn't a fluke. There is a reason why he produced that well. It's because he's becoming more and more of a part of this offense, and this offense is being forced to throw the ball more because they have to keep up with opposing offenses that are scoring so many points against their defense. Again, this is a Carolina Panthers defense that has struggled against the run all season long and against the pass over the top of their heads. And I think when Kyle Allen is going to have to take on a guy like Matt Ryan, you're going to have to score a lot. Greg Olsen should be good, in line for a pretty good productive week here in week 6. Moving on, Gerald Everett against the Bears. Like I mentioned yesterday, Cooper Kupp, Gerald Everett, Robert Woods. That is the reception order, in my opinion, of how this week is going to turn out against the Bears. Gerald Everett had himself a very, pretty good game. It wasn't a very good game. Obviously, a touchdown would make it a very good game, but he had a pretty good game in terms of targets, receptions, yards against the Goodness, why am I forgetting who they played last week? Because I'm completely probably just still pissed off. Yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had a pretty good game against Pittsburgh. Now, going into this week against the Bears at home, because of the absence of a Brandon Cooks, absence of a run game as a whole, Gerald Everett's going to continue to see more and more opportunity. He's going to be able to produce on it. He should be a good tight end this week is my number 7. Moving on to Eric Ebron, number 8. With Jacoby Brissett coming back, hopefully this is going to make a difference. Jack Doyle's been dealing with a little bit of an injury this week. Did return to practice today, but I think Jacoby Brissett's return will increase the value of Eric Ebron. He was force-fed targets last week because he complained about not getting targets. Had 12 targets, only caught the ball 5 times. Brian Hoyer, we understand. But hopefully as the weeks progress, he's going to see more and more targets. With the absence of T.Y. Hilton, they need a big target, fiend to step up and make plays. Hopefully it's going to be Eric Ebron for this offense, and I'm expecting it to be that this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's had very good performances against his defense in the past. Let's not forget that 3-touchdown game last year, and I think he'll be able to take advantage of that once again this year in this matchup. He's my number 8 in Week 11. Moving on to number 9, Darren Fells. Like I mentioned earlier, in the week in general, this is a tougher matchup for Deshaun Watson. This is a tougher matchup for Hopkins, Fuller, and this offense as a whole, especially, Carlos Hyde. Running game is going to be tough. Darren Fells has somehow been the guy that when everybody else is double covered and bottled up, finds himself value in the red zone and is consistently doing it. So I think Darren Fells, as consistent as he has been, continuously should be relied upon at least into this matchup, because it is a tougher matchup and it will force a guy like Deshaun Watson to have to feed him the ball because no one else might be open, and it probably leans in the favor of a Darren Fells touchdown game, to be honest. So he'll sit at my number 9 this week. Moving on to number 10, Kyle Rudolph. Like I've mentioned before, Kyle Rudolph has scored 4 touchdowns in the last 4 weeks. That's very good. Obviously, he scored 2 last week, 2 in the first 2 weeks. But as of right now, as it sits, Kyle Rudolph's a little sketchy. But I'm leaning in favor of Kyle Rudolph because of the fact that down in the red zone, someone's gonna have to catch the ball. They're gonna stop the run pretty heavily. Irv Smith sure is gonna run around, but there is no Stephon Diggs to make plays in the goal line. And it really is going to depend on their tight ends, whether it's him or Kyle Rudolph, or Irv Smith or Kyle Rudolph. And I think Kyle Rudolph is getting the job done, is going to continue to see more targets, and he's going to be, obviously touchdown dependent, but reliable to an extent. So I expect him to be good. He's my number 10 on the week. Moving on to number 11, Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz could potentially be shut down. We could see a Dallas Goedert game here by the New England Patriots because, Bill Belichick, if he sees Travis Kelce, he sees Mark Andrews, he sees Zach Ertz, he wants to shut him down. But if we go back and we look at what Zach Ertz did to Bill Belichick in the Super Bowl, actually, let's go see here. Let's see here. I'm actually curious because I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, goodness gracious, can I do this? Yeah, thank you. I'm pretty sure Zach Ertz had a very good game. What did I just type? All right, guys, we're going to have to... Goodness gracious, I don't know what. I literally typed something and it just auto-corrected to something else. All right, here we go. So, in this game, what exactly did Mr... Here we go. Zach Ertz, 7 receptions, 67 yards, and a touchdown on 9 targets. Pretty good game. Hopefully, we can see one of those games. If that's not the case, because Alshon Jeffrey's out and all they really have to do is stop Ertz and the run game, then probably Zach Ertz might get locked down. Just preemptively warning you. Otherwise, has been good against the Patriots in the past. So hopefully that's not the case. The last tight end option I want to talk about, Ross Dwelley. Like I mentioned earlier, anybody who plays against the Cardinals, I want to start them. If it's Kittle, if it's him, doesn't matter. If it's Kittle, Kittle's number 2. If it's Ross, he's number 12. I'm perfectly fine with starting him over a couple of these other guys, but I still want to be careful because he is a backup tight end and might, disappear on a given week. You never know. But either way, he plays against the Cardinals. Should be fun for those of you who are missing tight ends due to bye weeks, etc. Anyway, that is pretty much it. Those are my top 12 tight end rankings on the week for Week 11. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Until next time, tomorrow, Hidden Gems. We'll talk about some stuff like that. But until then, I'll see you guys. Thank you for watching. And if you liked today's video, don't forget to click the like button. Peace.